The meeting will come to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday, March 11th. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Phil Howard.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can remain standing for a moment of silence. Let's reflect on the things that are dividing our community and how beautiful it can be if we can all come together. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Miss Christine Bello,
Here.
Miss Thomasina Bello,
Here.
Miss Mackenzie Boucher,
Yes.
Miss Victoria Boucher,
Here.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Present.
Mr. DeRay,
Present.
Mr. Howard,
Here.
Miss Politti,
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Next up on the agenda is a presentation by our external auditors, the EFPR Group.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Doug Zillman, a partner with the FPR Group, and with me is,
Dave Gable, Director of the LPR Group.
and as was mentioned, we're going to go over a high-level overview of the results of the audit. Can you hear us okay?
No.
We're going to be going over the results of the audit we conducted in the district for the year.
Everyone hear clearly. Thank you.
Audit of the district for the year ending June 30th. A PowerPoint that we're going to walk through, and we'll pull it up. Are you able to see that?
Okay.
So again, this is the results of our audit for the year ended June 30th, 2024. We actually issued 5 separate reports in connection with that audit. There's the audit of the basic financial statements. There's a single audit in accordance with what's called uniform guidance. There's an audit on the extra classroom activity funds of the district. We issue a report to the board and a management letter. And again, we'll just go through the audit approach and some of the conclusions with regards to the audit. Slide, please. Again, we approach the audit by performing a detailed risk assessment of the district. We identify significant audit areas and obtain a detailed understanding of the internal controls within these audit areas. Some of the items that we do, we review the business office's operating procedures and accounting and reporting documents, and we conduct walkthroughs of the cash receipts, cash disbursements, and payroll processes that the district has in place. And in connection with that, we interviewed a number of the key employees within those functional areas.
Can we pause for a minute? We don't have the right stuff on the screen here.
Oh, certainly.
Thank
Are
you.
you able to see the PowerPoint slide?
We're on audit approach.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Again, we approach the audit by performing a detailed risk assessment, as I mentioned, and there on the slide. We do a review of the various functional areas, your internal controls with regards to the receipts processing, disbursement processing, and the payroll processing, which are the key functional areas within the business office, and the revenues coming in and the disbursements going out between cash disbursements and payroll. Next slide, please. In connection with the review of the internal controls, we test the effectiveness of those controls. We perform detailed testing of cash receipts and payroll, and we review the supporting documentation behind that. And our sample sizes are based on the various population size and the professional guidance that we follow in accordance with auditing standards. We also performed the detailed testing of the cash disbursements and cash receipts of the ESSER Classroom Activity Fund, and also tested various other reconciliation processes in such areas as cash, meaning the bank reconciliations, grant reconciliations, the accounts receivable, accounts payable. In connection with the various review of internal controls and testing, we examined supporting documentation such as purchase orders, packing slips, claims auditor reports for the disbursements. On the payroll side, we look at employee timesheets, employment eligibility, various licensing, the collective bargaining agreements, wage rates, salary scales, and then obviously on the bank reconciliation and on the receipt side, we're looking at deposit slips, checks coming in, bank statements, reconciliation process. Based on a review of all those various internal control areas, we developed detailed audit work programs that are designed for each significant audit area of the district that will eventually allow us to issue opinions on the overall financial statements. With regards to the actual audit results, we issued what's called an unmodified or clean opinion on the basic financial statements. That opinion was dated December 20th of 2024. That was the date at which we had completed all the various test work and received all the necessary information from management, and were able to issue the opinion on those financial statements. Within that financial statement, there was also a report on what's called government auditing standards, and I'll turn it over to Dave Gable here to review some of the results of that opinion.
Yeah, in that opinion, we have material weakness in internal control. It was noted as for accounting records and significant auditing adjustments. That finding was 2024-001. We had 28 adjusting journal entries. Some of the adjustments that we made in the general fund were to correct taxes receivable and related deferred taxes for about 2.9 million. We corrected amounts due from New York State related deferred revenues of about 7.9 million. That was a prior year receivable and deferral that wasn't recorded properly in the current year. We reversed some accounts payable for some band expenses, your bond anticipation note for 5 million, and related interest to that about 600,000. That will be paid in the new year. We reclassified about $8 million in judgments that were recorded against your liability reserves and recorded another 7.3 million as accounts payable for that same judgment. We made about $15 million in adjustments in the capital fund for band proceeds that were recorded as revenue when they should have been recorded as accounts receivable. We issue another report, a report in accordance with government auditing standards, when we noted the following items. We had an untimely filing submission of your financial statements were due October 15th to New York State SED. That filing obviously was not completed until after the issuance date of December 20th, 2024. We also had a finding related to excess general fund balance under the New York State property tax law. The tax law limit is 4%. The district was at 5.0% or 5.03%. We also did an audit of the extra classroom activity fund. That audit is currently in draft. We just reviewed that with the audit committee an hour ago. We are planning to issue an unmodified opinion on the extra classroom activity funds. It took a while to get all the activity reconciled and everything, but once it was all said and done, we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the extra classroom activity fund. We also issued our federal audit compliance grant, our grant audit yesterday, March 10th, and we issued an unmodified opinion on compliance for the major funds. That's an unmodified, a clean opinion on compliance with the major program. The major program that we tested was the Education Stabilization Fund. There were 3 separate grants in there, basically related to COVID and the American Rescue Plan. You can see we had the American Rescue Plan, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. There was also the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, kind of redundant, but different little subclass. It's D versus U. And we also audited the American Rescue Plan, the elementary and secondary school emergency relief, homeless children and youth.
The total was about just over $23.2 million of money that was received and expected related to that education stabilization fund. So again, that's a very high level overview of the results of the audit. We did review the financial statements in detail back in late December with the audit committee, and certainly responded to any questions they had with regards to the results of the audit and the numbers within the body of the financial statements. And with that, we would certainly be happy to answer any questions that any board members may have.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes, for the public, could you tell us the amount of transfers we had to make to reconcile the adjusted journal entries to make everything accurate?
Sure. As David mentioned, we recorded 28 adjustments. He hit in the summary there some of the highlighted or some of the larger adjustments. The total of the 28 adjustments was $54,551,000.
Mr. Stewart?
So the late filing of this report, is that going to affect any of our state aid?
Well, the way that this New York State Education Department works is, as we mentioned, the filing deadline is October 15th. They do allow a 30-day grace period before they take any specific action to November 15th. And then at that point in time is when they start to notify districts that they have not filed, and they begin the process of potentially withholding state aid. So again, you filed that report in late December. So management would have to comment with regards to whether or not there was any timing issues with regards to any receipt of payments. But again, those would just be timing issues. Eventually, once the report's filed, everything is eventually made up whole. So it would just be a timing issue. And again, management would have to comment with that with regards to transactions that occurred, after we had completed the audit.
Ms. Boucher?
When did you start this audit process?
We begin the audit process in July. Basically, we begin our planning process. School district audits, again, are all due by October 15th. So some of them are ready earlier than others. And it really depends on the individual district. A lot of times test work is done during the month of October. For this specific district, all the accounting records, as the adjustments indicate, weren't certainly ready in August. We hit the field in September to do some test work. And again, there were delays with regards to reconciling items, information that wasn't tying out. And so it took between when that finally were able to be on site in September to that final completion in December before we're able to receive all the necessary information from the district and work through all the various reconciliations. And again, the 28 audit adjustments that were necessary in order to present the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you. Thank you. So during your report and investigations for the external audit, were there any malfeasance found, any fraud, any egregious areas that were with purposeful intent?
I believe you had asked whether there was any malfeasance. Is that correct? I had trouble hearing you.
That's correct. Malfeasance, any egregious areas, or any fraud?
No, I mean, all the issues, all the audit adjustments related to just the accounting records not being appropriately maintained. At no time did we detect anything that would rise to the level of misappropriated funds. Certainly, if we had seen anything like that, we would have brought it to the attention of the audit committee long before we had completed the audit. But no, we didn't see anything that related to misappropriation of funds in that manner. It was really just, lack of a better word, not well-kept accounting records that resulted in that 28 audit adjustments.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you. So strictly from a layperson's perspective, when you said unmodified opinion, can you explain what that means?
Unmodified opinion.
Oh, sure, certainly. An unmodified opinion, it used to be called an unqualified opinion several years back. Basically what it means is that it's a clean opinion on the financial statements. After the 28 audit adjustments, the various numbers within the body of financial statements, the assets, the liabilities, the revenue, the expenditures have all been appropriately accounted for and recorded in accordance with what's called generally accepted accounting principles, which is the overall set of accounting rules that every organization follows in the preparation of their financial statements. And for a school district, you actually follow a subset of that called governmental accounting standard board, or GASB. Government Accounting Standards Board issues accounting rules and regulations for governmental organizations, and certainly the district is a governmental body, and so you follow those types of accounting rules for governmental organizations. And again, that clean opinion or unmodified opinion means that after those adjustments, everything has been appropriately recorded in accordance with the various accounting rules and regulations that you have to follow.
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes, one last question. For the public, could you tell them how much over the 4% rule we ended up in the budget last year?
Certainly. The requirement, again, is a 4% threshold, and there's a calculation that we do. It's actually in the financial statements themselves on page 61 of the report, but the 4% number was $14,359,000, and your fund balance, the unappropriated fund balance, was $18,073,000. So it is, some $4.6 million in excess of the 4% threshold. So again, it wasn't, like you were required to be at 4% and you were at 14% or something like that. It was above, but it was 1.03% above the 4% limit. And a lot of that, quite frankly, we've seen that in several districts across the state. And some of it has a direct relationship to that COVID money that we talked about, that the districts received large inflows of COVID money, and it really was difficult to manage funding and finances and ensure that you were below the 4% threshold, because again, that significant influx, in your case, in the current year, you had $23.2 million of federal dollars related to the COVID relief. So, that is not a finding that has not been, atypical. We've seen that in other districts, especially during the COVID era here throughout New York State.
Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is public comment on agenda items. When you come to the podium, please state what agenda item you are speaking about, and please do not use names of any staff member, student, or board member. Thank you. Mr. McCoy, who's up?
The first person to comment on agenda items would be Mr. Dennis Grant. Okay, we'll move on. The next person signed up for agenda items is Miss Alexis Yekel.
Hi, I'm Alexis McCoy-Yekel, a resident of the city of Newburgh. This is my 18th year in education. My first job was teaching ninth graders how to read because they came to me not yet reading. And my 21st year as a parent. I share this to say that I am new. I am not new to this. I am true to this. I'm here to speak on agenda item 7.8. I see some of wonderful colleagues who I worked with on this list receiving professional development. and writing curriculum. And so I think that's wonderful. But my concern is that on the New York State report card, 17% of our students are students with disabilities. So my wondering is, when we're writing this curriculum, are we considering our students with disabilities? Because that's about 1 in every 5. Are we having our general educators work with our special educators? As a reading teacher, someone who worked specifically in the science of reading before it was called that. I wonder is also how people who are not reading teachers will support literacy, and are we building that into the curriculum writing as well? As a reading teacher, I never wanted someone who did not know how to teach reading to teach reading, but I wanted all of my colleagues to support literacy. So that is just my wondering, as you consider this, how are we building that in? How are we supporting our students with disabilities? How are we ensuring that all teachers are supporting literacy, seeing as we're in a place where many of our children are not reading on grade level, and they have the right to read. And so as a taxpayer and a member in this district, I want to make sure that we're giving them the opportunity to do that. And I think that would come through collaboration instead of folks working in silos. Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak on agenda items is Miss Tracy Wallace.
Okay. There we go. Thank you. You're welcome. I have my phone. Hi. Oh, it's not on? Is it on? Okay. Tracy from the City of Newburgh. It's not on. Hello? Okay. Tracy from the City of Newburgh. I wanted to comment on the audit. I wanted to say that I think that reserve funds need to be fully explained to the public and what reserve fund means. I think that reserve funds are really important because we may not get our grants for people that need it in our programs, and those reserve funds are meant for many different programs that we may need. I don't have my list in front of me. So for the 4% to 5%, in January 23rd, Dr. Manning Campbell had wrote a letter in the audit and explained thoroughly on the Newburgh and Large City School District website on everything that was reported today. There was nothing new that we saw today other than some oversight, which I'm confused as to who appoints the treasurer in the oversight for Dr. Manning Campbell. It's to my knowledge that I thought the board was the oversight as far as treasurer and as far as some oversight into some miscalculations in the, as they said, there were some, pointed out some miscalculations or some mathematical errors in there. I'm also concerned about the voting policy, and I'm jumping from one policy to the next. The voting policy states that you want to allow paroled sex offenders into our buildings between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. And there's different levels of sex offenders. There's not even preference to that. I tried to look for the educational law that states this. I tried to study other school districts that have this on there. I don't see other school districts that has this on there. I understand that some board members are saying they're getting this advice from their lawyer as to put this on there. I think that really should get some advice from our lawyer, but I think that we can look elsewhere for our research and not just say our lawyer told us to do so. I think that you should do your own research because we've had the same lawyer for some years now, and there's credible mistakes and numerous boards that's been up here for some time. So, and when I do my research, I certainly see a lot of board members that are relying on on their council, but I do see a lot of mistakes within the board and within the administration who are relying on such counsel. So what I'm saying is, do your own research. You're up here for a reason. There are 9 of you. There are not 4 of you. There are not 5 of you. There are 9 of you that I hold responsible for the oversight of everything that the administration puts forth. And for those that say the administration for 2 boards hasn't put forth anything, I think the administration has been fighting with 2 boards. And it's kind of difficult when you're fighting with an administration to get things done within your buildings if you're fighting with the administration for 2 boards. The other thing that I would like to talk about is I was here at the committee meeting for the policy on the 50,000 to 200,000 oversight. I don't have my right words. Oversight in which the board would like 50 for the 200,000 to reduce to 50,000. Anything they want to approve anything over 50,000. We have heard from the Exceptional Learners Department. We have heard from different departments on how this would stop a lot of important decisions that need to be made. And it's already, then we have board meetings, you're going to have more special meetings, and it's going to take a longer process for things for the school to run. And I was here when your lawyer said at the committee meeting, for smaller districts, they use smaller numbers. For a larger district, they use larger numbers. And so, we have a big district, and we do have large numbers. If you haven't seen the budget in the millions, and by the way, the new budget that's on our agenda says we are now in proposing a $16 million deficit with the new acting superintendent. That is also on there. I didn't get to look over it completely yet, but we're complaining about one superintendent's proposed budget, and now we have a $16 million deficit in our proposed budget for today. That's on the agenda as well. But I am going to try and keep this quick. I would like to again, the board do their duties and do your research, and don't just come up here and approve based on a lawyer's opinion, based on you don't know what you're doing. Just find out what you're doing, learn more about what you're doing so that you can make good decisions for the students and policies, and bring up policies that are not just, well, we're just going to do policies because it's on our, no, bring up policies that you want to change and make those changes. I can't speak fast enough. There's too much on the agenda today.
There's no one else signed up on agenda items. If anybody would like to speak on agenda items, please come to the podium.
I didn't think everyone saw it.
Okay, we'll move on to non-agenda items. The first person that signed up to speak on non-agenda items is Mr. Braden Gonseth.
Good evening. If you don't know, you should know. My name is Braden Gonseth, and I graduated from NFA in 2024. I played football for the Newburgh football program since I was in 7th grade, modified football all the way up to varsity football. I will be addressing the mistake with asking of the Newburgh coaching staff to not return as coaches. I played under the head coach for NFA and his varsity staff in 2022 and 2023. I will first talk about the football aspect. I'm not a big numbers guy. The district is asking the head coach for NFA, who is the winningest coach in NFA history, and his coaching staff who played football at a high level and the best at their coaching position, to step away for something they had nothing to do with. I understand it was football players in the locker room that did the whole brawl. The coaches aren't really supposed to be in the locker room where it took place. It's for players/athletes or for the school, the storage unit. My time playing on the varsity team, I started at every game from 2022 to 2023. In 2022 is when the Newburgh Goldbacks won the section championship, beat the #1 team in Carmel, and then moved on to the next #1 team in CBA and beat them, and then went to the state championship to play on national television. Not many teams in New York State can even say that. My time being on varsity, my team lost 5 games in 2 years. 2 being preseason games, 1 being state championship, 2 against Middletown my senior year. That still keeps me up at night. So we didn't do a lot of losing under the winningest head coach in NFA history and his staff. NFA's coaching staff set a culture in this program. When other Section 9 teams beat NFA, it's like they won the state championship. There's a target on Newburgh's back every season. Other teams will say in order to be the best, you got to beat the best, and that has been Newburgh for as long as I can remember. It starts with this amazing coaching staff, and asking them to not come back as coaches kills what they built for this program, hurts up-and-coming athletes that want to learn and play under this amazing coaching staff, and hurts former players like me that put blood, sweat, and brain cells into this program. Let's talk about the coaching staff. Let me give a little insight. Good coaches aren't hard to come by. Good coaches and great people are very hard to come by. NFA coaching staff has dedicated so much of their personal time to build this program, to build this team, to make sure this team is healthy and right for game day, and to build relationships with their players, be a part of the youth community, and for this school. We can look at each coach's resume and say, wow, they are really good, but their character is even better. As a district, you would want to see your athletes go to college, right? This NFA coaching staff will help tremendously to put their good student athletes into colleges. As a district, you want to see leaders for these high school kids, especially when we are in a time of need of leaders. This NFA coaching staff are mentors and even father figures to their players. As a district, you want to continue to dominate Section 9 in the sport of football. This coaching staff has done that tremendously. We can go down the list of what the district is looking for in a coach, and these coaches check the box. I never fought so hard for a coaching staff like these guys on any given game day, and that just shows how much they mean to us football players. I would go to war and back for these coaches. To end this off, if the ultimate decision is for the coaches to not come back, no disrespect to the next coaching staff coming in, but this varsity coaching staff should untie their shoes, leave them at the door, and write a note saying, good luck. Thank you for your time.
The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Jonathan Siglio.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Seglio, and I'm a senior at Newburgh Free Academy main campus. I've been a part of the Newburgh football family for over 10 years, going back to when I was just 6 years old. Over the course of those years, I met some very incredible gentlemen along the way. They made me a better player, a harder worker, but most importantly, they made me a better person. They turned a 6-year-old autistic child into one of the most loved and revered players within the program. I can confidently say that these men behind me were more than just football coaches. To some, they were father figures. To me, they were more than that. To some, one of my role models was my defensive coordinator after he beat kidney cancer a few years ago. My defensive line coach recommended me to go to Hofstra University, which is currently the #1 college on my list. My wide receivers coach became my trainer for an offseason and has become a massive supporter for me and my brother. All the other coaches have contributed to my family in some way, shape, or form, but my head coach became more than just a coach in the 10+ years I've known him. He's the reason I got my nickname that is known as JJ Seggs. He shows up to a ton of family events and has been someone that I've admired for a very long time. That is why I'm speaking in front of you today. When the higher-ups have tried to destroy something that is near and dear to me, that's where I draw the line. The decision of not recommending these gentlemen for another season will most likely result in a paradigm shift, as a once dominant 20+ year football powerhouse will almost instantly turn into a bottom feeder and a laughing stock. What happened in the locker room was an absolute disgrace, and as one of the players on that team, I can confidently say we are deeply ashamed of what transpired. To make matters worse, we still have not been given any sort of senior recognition, no sort of banquet, and have just simply been forgotten about. We as a community formed a Facebook group that has now over 400 members called Save Newburgh Sports, which resulted in these signs that say Save Newburgh Athletics that were distributed tonight, because that is the level of importance that Newburgh Athletics has to us. It's a huge concern when athletics at this school seem to be an afterthought. I'm embarrassed to discuss to people outside of Newburgh what happened with my senior season, as it goes down as the worst experience I've ever been a part of. As of today, March 11th, it's been 126 days since the investigation of a hazing incident started. We still have no sort of answers on what happened, just knee-jerk reactions. The actions of the few should not determine the reputation and the futures of the majority. My father mentioned to me 1,000,000 times over the past week that the reason that we are doing what we are doing is because of our mantra. It means more to us than it does to them. Over the last decade, Newburgh football has been my family's passion and magnum opus. Even though my football career is over, By replacing these coaches, you're potentially sabotaging the futures of many up-and-coming varsity athletes. On February 26, our longtime announcer said this: "To say this head coach was one of the best is an understatement. This coach held his players accountable in every facet of their lives: school, sports, personal, and helped them become good young men who gave back to their communities. He invested in the youth programs and always took interest in the young athletes. He ran his program above board, and he was always transparent. Because the situation looked bad, and instead of having a good coach back, they'll hang him out to dry and they'll blame him and his fellow coaching staff. How much more can Newburgh screw up? Our football coach became the winningest coach in Newburgh football going back to 1890. A wrestling coach who's been sitting next to me, who is just inducted into the New York State Wrestling Hall of Fame, and brought success back to a program that produced many state champions. How are they repaid? Not recommended to come back or relieved as coaches. What is wrong with this district? In a time when young men need great mentors, they hang these guys out to dry and blame them for a fight. When someone who worked for you for 32 years has that to say, that's a problem. Since for some weird reason you're holding the coaches accountable, let me just simply paint a picture for you. Let's say during a normal day at NFA, a kid leaves class and he goes to the bathroom. While he or she is in there, they get into a fight. Is that teacher in trouble? Are they held accountable for their actions? That scenario is basically what happened with our coaches. Everybody knows that Newburgh is not the most beloved school in Section 9, but when your arch rivals in Monroe, Woodbury, and Kingston are saying you made a mistake, that's not a coincidence. That is a colossal failure. Let's also not forget that none of the coaches before this one had made a state championship. He did it 3 times. This is not just a program builder, but a leader on and off the field. Due to his methods and work ethic, Newburgh football had become a way of life and a way to unite the community unlike any other. The amount of high school graduates and scholarships that were awarded definitely tells a story of greatness and excellence, a gold standard. If you decide to uphold this decision, that gold standard of excellence could simply have a Mandela effect, never to return to the glory days possibly ever again. Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Bruce Montgomery. Moving on, the next person, Mr. Dennis Grant. Okay, we'll move on.
That's my boy, go get it. Money, on the money. Stop the 30-minute clock. I didn't hear the sign up to speak. I didn't even know nothing about this meeting until I heard about it. But I'm here.
Okay, we're going to come back to Mr. Montgomery when he comes in the room. The next person on the list is Mr. Rick Siglio.
Don't start the clock yet. That was a really tough act to follow. Okay, here we go. Good evening. My name is Rick Seglio. I am the proud dad of 2 boys, one a senior at NFA Maine and the other 8th grader at South. I'm here tonight to share the impact of our football coaches have had on my family and this community. I serve proudly as the president of the Goldbacks Youth Football and Cheer League, the feeder program for NFA football and cheer, and have held this role for the past 8 years. When I joined in 2014, we just had 77 football players. Since then, I've worked closely with the NFA varsity head coach and his staff to grow the program. We have a unique situation in our district with 2 youth programs, and our varsity coaches have supported both equally. They have provided opportunities for all players, running free clinics and events that introduce more kids to the game. Over the past 11 years, my league has expanded tremendously. We introduced a cheer program that now includes 120 cheerleaders. And our football enrollment has doubled to 150 players. This spring, our flag football program will serve as over 300 boys and girls, further strengthening the pipeline of young players in our district. When I first started the program, we were a top 10 in size and in participation in the Orange County Youth Football League. Today, we are the largest league in the Orange County Youth Football League. We are the gold standard. Neighboring towns look at us and they say, we want to become you guys. That's the support we want from our varsity program. This type of support is not common. Many towns don't even get the time of day from their varsity staff. Ours have gone out of their way to provide all of us with the support and guidance we need to be a true feeder program. When the Orange County Youth Football League was looking for coaches for their clinic, volunteer, and they asked other coaches in all the other towns, nobody showed up. You know who showed up? The NFA varsity coach. He not only showed up, but he taught 4 classes instead of 1. I can speak confidently about this information because I'm also the vice president of the Orange County Youth Football League. I thank them tonight for coming to show their support for our head coach and his staff. It is astonishing how this decision came to be. What went into it? An unfortunate event was used to erase years of dedication, mentorship, and leadership. Do you truly understand what it takes to guide these young athletes? The time spent in the off-season, checking on their attendance, their grades, interactions with teachers. Has anyone examined these students' athletics, academic record, their in-season and out? Has anyone looked at how many have graduated, gone on to college, or earned football scholarships? What is the football team's graduation rate? Clearly, none of that was considered because if it had been, these coaches would be back where they belong, coaching in the spring. So the players involved get suspended and take out of school. They serve their very lengthy punishment and they're back in class and back to sports. The coaches who are unaware of what even happened have been told a decision has been made not to allow them to continue in their coaching role. Did anyone stop to consider the impact this decision will have on these players? We talked about the importance of students' mental health, but what about these football players? What about the ones who were suddenly told they can't no longer communicate with their coaches? The people they saw every day and spent more time with than anyone else. This was a complete failure top to bottom. The blame has been conveniently placed on the coaches, making them scapegoats. But did anyone even see what the locker room looked like? For those unaware, it was never cleaned. How can the district claim that was a fully functional space? Why was this even considered acceptable? The impact of this decision will be felt beyond the field. It affects the players who look up to the coaches, the families who trust them, and the community that stands behind them. We urge the board and the superintendent to do what's right, not just for today, but for the future of this program and the young athletes who serve it. Our coaches have always shown up for us. Now it's time for us to show up for them.
Mr. Bruce Montgomery.
Hi everyone, I'm Bruce Montgomery. I'm not gonna say a lot, but I just wanted to say, like these coaches is more than football. They're really helping players get to the next level, and I think you should reevaluate your decision. Thank you.
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Sir, there's a sign-up list. Did you sign up?
Yeah.
We're doing it together.
Okay.
They call it Dennis.
Your name? Can you just announce your name, sir?
My name's Dennis.
Thank you.
I play quarterback at the school of Newburgh Free Academy. 126 days ago to be exact, there was an investigation launched on events that occurred in our locker room in the month of October. These events that went on in the locker room don't get me wrong, they weren't to be justified at all or anything that happened. Us as players serve severe suspensions for these activities. For example, one player involved was suspended until February 2nd, and this occurred on November 5th, to be exact. In my opinion, this decision was 100% an impulse decision. There's no report of anybody being injured in this altercation. There's nothing. Us as players, we took 100% responsibility for everything that happened in the locker room. There was no coaches present. They had nothing involved with anything that happened in the locker room at all. I feel like this punishment is severe on everybody, including the coaches and players, parents and players included. You know how many people take off of work to come see their kids play on Fridays and Saturdays? I mean, that's money left on the table. One thing I could say is Coach Lass, Coach B, Coach Rob, Coach P, Coach Mann, Coach Geyer, Coach Sebald, Coach Tolbag, everybody, they don't matter. You can hurt them the worst way possible. They want to see you be successful no matter what. There was an incident I was involved in. I made a dumb social media post, and our head coach, Coach Bianco, he talked to me. He was like, listen, it was a dumb decision. I owned up to what I did. He's like, but you know what? No matter what, I'm always going to be here for you, no matter what decision you've done. If you made anything dumb, to shun me or anything, because I love everybody as equal as possible. Like, it goes on. Like, Coach B is the most winningest coach in Newburgh history. And you see that part, but what the part you don't see is how many lives he's changed in young men in this community. In this community, sports is a big way we interact. You can see as the activities that go on outside of here, where sports is one thing we have to cope together. That's a way we get togetherness and become more family and equal as a community. Like me, I've known most of these coaches since I was 4 years old, starting in the youth program. There was a flag football event that was held. There's 2 youth programs in the community, the Steelers and the Go-Backs. I played for both teams. And the way they're both treated equally by Coach B doesn't, like, you wouldn't think that would be happening, because as high school we're Go-Backs, but the Steelers and the Go-Backs get as much love as possible, equally. Another thing to add, the start of my freshman year, I was attending Iona Preparatory School in New Rochelle, New York. The reason I came back to the school was because I felt like I had a thing to prove. I wanted to be the first realistic kid to get a scholarship and go to the NFL at the Newburgh Free Academy. I'm a member of the National Juniors Honor Society, which isn't common for kids like me. Every member of this community, every member of the coaching staff loves everybody. They want to see you succeed as far as possible. Like my man Braden said, no matter what happens, they want to see you be great. Another thing, there's widespread coaches from around the area, not even from Newburgh, that disagree with this decision. Like Monroe's head coaches don't agree with this, and Monroe hates our guts to death, as you should know. Even Kingston, it's like this decision was in my opinion, was 100% an impulse decision. Me as a leader, I look at myself as a leader in this community. I'm part of multiple programs. I feel like as a leader, I deserve to be in a position like that, to talk up against bad decisions in this community. My goal is to really grow as not even a football player, but just a human being in general. Every single coach on the coaching staff has helped me get to my goal. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
The next person signed up to speak is Miss Caitlin Lazarski.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Lazarski. I'm a proud third-generation graduate of Newburgh Free Academy and the parent of a future graduate of the class of 2029. Tonight, I stand before you not only as an alumni and a parent, but as the voice of the dedicated coaches who have been unjustly removed from their positions, individuals who have given their time, energy, and hearts to the students of this district. For my husband, coaching has never been a job, just a calling. Our story began in this very district. He's embarrassed about this part of my speech, but oh well. Appropriately, we met in the cafeteria of South Junior High School in 1997 and fell in love on the sidelines of Academy Field in 1999. In 2001, he earned a Division I football scholarship to the University of Maine, where he earned both his undergraduate degree and master's in education in 5 years. When it came time to lay down our roots and raise a family, we chose to come home to Newburgh, not because we had to, but because we wanted to give back to the community that shaped us. For the past 17 years, my husband has done just that, teaching and coaching, mentoring and guiding, ensuring that the young men in the football program have what they need to succeed on and off the field. Coaching isn't just about plays and game strategy, it's about responsibility. These men are role models. They push their players academically, making sure that they get the support they need in the classroom. They step up when students face challenges at home, often assuring that basic needs are met. The amount of time, energy, and heart they pour into their players is immeasurable. As a coach's wife, I see the late nights, the weekends lost to film review, the vacations interrupted by scouting and preparation, all largely unpaid, all done for the love of the game and the students that they serve. More than anything, their dedication ensures the safety of our athletes. Football is not a sport where players can simply be switched in and out without proper preparation. Substituting an unready player isn't just a bad strategy, it's dangerous. Yet these coaches have had the added challenge of navigating inaccurate attendance data and Policy 5411, which have sidelined players unnecessarily. The idea that these seasoned professionals who have dedicated nearly 2 decades to this program would knowingly put students in harm's way is not only insulting, it's absurd. But what's most troubling is this pattern of behavior that's led us here. For the past 2 years, I've watched long-standing, dedicated Newburgh employees be bullied and belittled by a superintendent with no connection or vested interest in this community. A superintendent whose actions were allowed by members of this board. I know firsthand, since I was a respected leader in my department and in this community. Yet 4 months after I left, the former superintendent called my new district, spreading lies and falsely accusing me of meddling in my former department, all while replacing me with an unqualified friend from Mount Vernon. I watched as she publicly attempted to humiliate the former principal of Bombville School, a respected leader, for presenting on a reading program that was making a real difference in literacy. I watched as those loyal to that former principal of Bombville School were retaliated against and reassigned. I watched as longtime Newburgh administrators were denied tenure or offered salaries far below those of newly hired, less experienced administrators from Westchester, all handpicked by our former superintendent. And now this, the removal of dedicated Newburgh educators and coaches, men who have the unwavering support of this community. Football in Newburgh is more than just a sport. While other districts struggle to maintain JV and varsity teams, we have 2 Division III youth football teams, a modified team, a freshman team, a JV team, and a varsity team. Over 300 young men and their families are directly impacted by these coaches who were dismissed with no regard to their contributions, their character, or the program that they built. And why? Was it because of the instability in the capital bond project management, with contractors leaving due to issues with the assistant superintendent for business? Was it because the athletic director was too absent to recognize the state of our facilities? Or was this yet another piece of the former superintendent's plan, removing long-standing, deeply invested Newburgh educators and replacing them with outsiders who lack the experience, the history, and the heart of this community? I have always led with the belief that mistakes happen, but true leadership is about acknowledging them and ensuring that they won't happen again. So tonight I ask this board, what will you do to make this right now? Thank you.
Miss Alexis Yeakel.
Again. So I signed up to comment on the public service that I see here. Sitting here are administrators who I respect, who I would work under again in a hot minute. And so it hurts my heart to see the folks who are elected to serve our children that we trust you with argue and fight and not work collectively. I'm not going to stand up here and talk about one coalition or who says something. You are a collective. You are responsible for our babies, and you are not doing a good job. I have heard us talk about children in poverty as so far behind they'll never catch up. As someone who has spent her life in public service and was an educator in this district for 6 years, I find that deplorable. My children that I taught were amazing. Their parents were amazing. And if that meant they had to snatch a child up at 7 a.m. to get on the computer for COVID, they did it. If it meant they had to have a conversation with them about why they were valuing one thing over another, they did it. It is the job of a parent in the early years to talk to their children, to point out the words, to give them a beautiful vocabulary so that they can walk in with educators who are trained to teach them how to read. The parents I served here in the city of Newburgh did exactly that. I have heard us say that the science of reading is a philosophy. It is not. It is a group of studies that were done over decades that talk about the specific way that you need to teach reading so that you miss no children. That is what it is. As servants, you have to do the required homework. You have to look these things up before you speak as a leader about our children, about how they will learn how to read. I want to believe that you signed up to serve because you care about these children. Please actually do it. Please figure out how to work as a collective, because yelling at each other from the dais does not serve our children. We have 61% of our children who are in poverty, and you have to do nothing but open TikTok because it is free, okay? To see the horrors that that can visit on a family. And one thing gets our children out, and that is reading. And so many of them choose to come back and serve our community. The children who just spoke up here, whether you agree with what they have to say or not, they came up here, they used their voice, their vocabulary, and they told you exactly how they felt. We should be proud of that, and we should be pouring into them and never saying negative words about them and never saying things that are not true. You can rely on the amazing administrators here to tell you about the science of reading. You have someone who has a whole degree in it. Allow her to speak. If you don't know, say that you don't, right? That's what I taught all of my students. That is how you learn. But saying false things about our families, about our children, and choosing to fight instead of serve them so that I guess on Facebook, folks will think that like you're like top dog is not a way to lead. I respect your service. I respect that you stepped up, and I'm asking you to serve our children and not yourselves. Thank you.
Mr. Eric Van Delinda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Van Delinda. I'm from the town of Newburgh. I know a few of you in here, but there are others that do not know me. I am not from Newburgh. I am a retired Marine who got stationed here at Stewart in 2004. I am married to a nurse who has been at St. Luke's for almost 30 years. If any of you or your family have ever been at St. Luke's, she's probably been your nurse at some point. We have 3 kids in the district, with my daughter graduating NFA this year, ranking 13th in the 2025 class. The boys are in 9th grade at NFA. My one son's in 9th grade at NFA Maine, and my other son is in 8th grade at Meadow Hill. We are a Newburgh sports family. There are 6 sports in our house, and my daughter recently got recruited for crew at RIT. But make no mistake, her GPA being in this school district is what got her into RIT. We are very proud of her, and honestly, we are that family that actually likes the way the district has gone over the years. In many ways, in many different ways, including scholastically, music, and arts, and sports. We are a fan of the Newburgh and Large City School District, but it is also about parenting and keeping your kids occupied in things that are better in their lives, like sports. I know you all know this. I also have been a coach in the Little League and more recently the Go Back Youth Football program as well. Both my boys have been in that program for 7 years and very excited about now going on to the big field in high school. My 9th grader was one of the few freshmen to make the JV team as a star player who literally played 99% of the plays both ways. Coach P, because I can't say his name, and his staff were terrific. Him telling me one time how great a kid I had made me beam with pride. This comes from not just me and my wife, but everyone who has been a part of their upbringing, to include the district and the coaches. So this speech is about the decision to not rehire the NFA football coaches. We call it, as parents, them being fired. Sorry, that is how we feel. First of all, what happened was wrong and should not have happened, and I agree there should be some accountability. Yes, if it was my kid, I would want blood. Yes, most of the football parents think the same way. But I am not sure I would blame the coaches indefinitely, not blame them exclusively. Coach B and all the coaches have simply changed the lives of so many young football athletes, as well as other kids in the other sports that they coach in, including the spring that they're not in. Coach B and his team take a lot of time every season to come to the youth program to help us manage and mirror what NFA is doing, making us that much better and setting up a seamless transition to NFA football for the athletes. You might know the D3 team went 10-0 last year, winning the Super Bowl. This is definitely in part to the NFA coaches coming out, making a difference in hundreds of players' lives throughout the years. For us as parents, we simply want our coaches back. I get this is a hard decision to make, but understand the straight release of 9 coaches will decimate this program for many years. It might never recover. We should have been months into winter workouts and already starting agility camps and weight training. Not doing this is putting our kids at risk for injury. I know information to the board was limited, and legality issues were a huge part of the limited communication. But you need to listen now to the coaches and hear their side of the story. Yes, I have heard it. Yes, as a sensible person, I see mitigating circumstances and things that the district could have done better, not setting them up for failure. Yes, they could have done better as coaches. No one was without fault. The locker room / storage area is a mess. I have been in it many times and have previously commented that it looked like a scene from a 1980s horror film. It was a complete construction scene. Why did the AED allow them to use it? Why is it constantly unlocked? Why wasn't security involved that day in making sure it was locked? Also imagine if the $2.5 million that was allocated 2 years ago to renovate the locker room had actually been done by now, and there was an actual coach's office in that locker room to help supervise the athletes. Things would be very different today, and we wouldn't even be here. Again, I am asking you, listen to the coaches, listen to the parents, and bring back the coaches that have done so much good for this school and district for so many years and decades. Not to fire them for something they really had little control over. Thank you.
Madam President, the 30-minute time frame for non-agenda items has expired.
Point of order.
Madam President?
Victoria.
How many more speakers are on the list, Mr. McCoy?
There's 3 people signed up on the list.
I'd like to make a motion to allow those 3 members that signed up to speak.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call to allow 3 additional public comment speakers. Ms. Thomasina Bello.
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher.
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Duray.
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Ms. Politi.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello.
Yes.
The next person signed up is Ms. Yael Siglio.
right, hello. And thank you for this opportunity. My name is Yael Seglio, and my husband and I are also not from Newburgh. I will share with you, not scripted, when we first moved to Newburgh, and everybody said to me, "Oh my God, you're moving to the ghetto." I said to my husband, "Absolutely not." I said, "And our son will not go to high school here. We will move before that happens." And you heard from my son earlier this evening. So I thank the board for giving us years of excellent educational opportunities. But what brings me here tonight is what happened to our football program and the coaches. Having been a football parent for the past 11 years, I can say our entire family has a vested interest in the Goldback community. We do bleed blue and gold. Our other son is downstairs in the library. Hi, Daniel. Sorry. We collectively, as a family, including our 8th grader, have volunteered thousands of hours in the Newburgh football programs. The goal, of course, was to make things better than we found them, as I believe we all do in life. As many of you volunteer your time to make this district better when you were elected or appointed, I hope you have been listening to us tonight with kind ears and compassionate hearts. My son's amazing head football coach and his staff are the most dedicated, personally vested team I've ever seen assembled. Their commitment and dedication to their students, players, peers, parents, youth leagues, and opposing coaches is immeasurable. The time given by these coaches, us parents, the football players, our booster club, is worth its weight in gold. These coaches take young and naive students and prepare them for the world. They not only teach football skills, but help these young athletes prepare for life as well. They portray this in their careers and personal lives as well, striving to leave our football program and our schools better. Every year that I've been involved with this program, there has always been a controlled environment, the locker room. As another parent mentioned, it should have been renovated. There was $2 million earmarked for that purpose, and it's currently used as a storage facility for the janitors. Newburgh has 3 teams, freshman, JV, and varsity. There's over 100+ players at any given time that are at the field and have nowhere to change their clothes. The locker room is not habitable for the purpose that it serves. But when you have that many people and not the proper support, this is where problems occur. Please see this locker room incident as a whole for what it truly is, a fundamental breakdown of an established system of control, a system put in place to safeguard our players and students. Now, I really honestly don't know what a Board of Education is here to do. I don't. But I believe that our Board of Education has a responsibility to our community and has the authority to establish those controls. We have a superintendent responsible to all students and athletes to provide adequate facilities for all and maintain throughout. Our athletic director has a responsibility to provide communication to the community, parents and students of interruptions and solutions to the existing issue that plagues the athletes. Our security teams have a responsibility, knowing that there are over 100+ students in any given practice of football, to keep a watchful eye and establish a presence for the athlete's safety. And the coaches have the responsibility to work with these players and parents throughout the season. I urge you to acknowledge this colossal breakdown. It's experienced across the district, not solely on a few coaches who have done everything they can for these athletes. You can do something to promote better communication. You can do better. Don't let a teachable moment for all of us be dismissed because of blame. Please show our coaches and kids how much you believe in them and their goals. You're our community leaders. Collectively, you must do better than placing blame on a coaching staff. We hope that you will reinstate them effective immediately so that they can continue to be role models to these athletes. Thank you.
Miss Virginia Hoffman.
I'm here. Here we go. Mine's 6.5 though, I'm telling you now. My name is Virginia Hoffman. I stand before you not only as a concerned parent, but as a committed member of the Newburgh community. Unwilling to watch our children in schools suffer for mismanagement and negligence. Athletics in Newburgh have always been more than just sports. They provide discipline, motivation, and a sense of purpose, keeping students engaged, improving attendance and academics, and instilling lifelong values. With Newburgh having the highest crime rate in New York State, investing in after-school programs and athletics is more critical than ever to keep our children in positive, structured activities and out of harm's way. Many of our educators, administrators, and coaches are proud Newburgh graduates who understand firsthand how transformative these experiences can be. These programs are a lifeline for many students. Recent decisions in the athletic department raise serious concerns about whether leadership is prioritizing students or personal interests. Our athletes deserve a leader fully committed to their growth, well-being, and success on and off the field. Let's start with the most serious recent incident, the situation in the locker room. Let me be very clear, this was not the fault of the coaches, and I'd like the camera footage to be released. They are taxpayer-funded cameras, and we have the rights to see them. The students knew they were not allowed in the space and were instructed by their coaches to change in their designated areas. Once they became aware of the situation, they addressed it, allowed the investigation to proceed, and accepted punishments that should have only applied to those directly involved. The real failure lies in the athletic director's mishandling of the investigation. District bylaws require a bullying investigation committee, including administrative staff, a parent, a student, and a community partner. But this protocol was not followed. Why was this ignored? Since then, it has been a snowball effect of mismanagement and poor decision-making by the athletic director. The athletic director has unjustly extended coaches' suspensions even after the DA's investigation concluded, raising concerns about transparency. It is suspicious that an incident from October 17th was only brought to the board's attention on January 14th. And even more troubling that a statement about the incident and the future of the athletic department was released without a unanimous vote, violating bylaws. Furthermore, the director is actively preventing these coaches from returning, violating their teacher contracts, and exposing the district to potential lawsuits. Adding to the misconduct, he has tampered with coaching evaluations, altering them after the fact and even assigning the wrong evaluations to individuals, such as giving a football coach a soccer coach's evaluation. How can someone so careless be trusted with the careers of our educators and the well-being of our student athletes? Hello to the downstairs. Number 2, neglecting equipment and facilities. He has failed to properly schedule and oversee equipment drop-offs, resulting in football helmets not being properly reconditioned. This is a major safety hazard. He mistakenly discarded a brand new, very expensive and rightly earned wrestling mat instead of the cheerleading mats. Why weren't the cheer mats considered for donation to a youth program instead of being discarded? Had this been done, the mistake may have been caught before it was too late. Or was this deliberate act? The athletic director has denied youth programs access to the school facilities, despite their vital role in developing varsity and JV teams. Without these feeder programs, athletes lose crucial development opportunities, ultimately hurting high school teams. Questionable field use, number 3. Meanwhile, I have received credible information that an individual is using the football field without proper scheduling, insurance, or payment, running a personal business to profit off our student athletes. This same athletic director who had made it so difficult for legitimate youth programs to access the facility has turned a blind eye to this authorized use. Why is that? It is because this individual is a friend of the athletic director. The favoritism and double standards need to stop. Number 4, delay in coaching approvals and payments. On March 6th, I submitted policy changes for consideration to address a major flaw in how coaching approvals are handled. It is imperative that coaches be submitted for board approval in July for the upcoming year. The athletic director has been deliberately delaying these submissions, leaving teams unprepared and student athletes uncertain about whether they even have a team. Furthermore, many coaches have yet to be paid because the athletic director failed to submit them for approval in a timely manner. This mismanagement is a direct result of the athletic director's negligence. Our coaches deserve better, and our students deserve stability in their programs. We need leadership.
The next person signed up to speak is Miss Tracy Wallace.
Relationships like Coach B and his staff.
Can I ask you a question? Is there anyone signed up that didn't email you that needs to speak? So I will forfeit my time to anyone that wants to speak in my time. I'm on 5 minutes. Can I forfeit my time to someone in the audience that has not spoken? Is that in your bylaws, Mr. Shaw? Because I definitely don't want her to say no to me if I can do that. Does any of you want to speak within the 5 minutes that I'm forfeiting? I'd like to finish.
The floor is for Miss Tracy Wallace. Are you going to take your 5 minutes, Miss Wallace?
I'm asking if I can forfeit my time. I'm asking the board president if I could forfeit my time to allow someone to speak within my time. Because their limit, 30 minutes is limited. So I'm asking if I can forfeit my time to allow someone here that came to speak, because I speak all the time.
I'm sorry, Tracy, but that was not within our motion that we passed.
Madam President,
This is why it's important to come to the meetings, so that we can.
we did say we'd allow 3 more speakers, and we've only had 2.
I'd like to make a motion to let Tracy yield her time to one other person.
Can that be me?
So moved.
They're gonna let.
It's not me.
Wait.
On the question,
I gotta make a motion.
Roll call then.
Betty, wait. You gotta vote.
Roll call to allow Miss Wallace to yield her time. Miss Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Miss Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
yes.
Miss Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Miss Christine Bello?
Yes.
Miss Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing today? My name is Betty Jacobs Jackson. I am the parent of Darrell Jackson Jr., the one they call D-Money. I am also the parent of DeAndre Capri Johnson, the one who came from this football team, the one who is now, because of this football coaches, took their hard time in helping my boys. They've been a father, they've been a teacher, and they've been hell of a good coaches. My son now is at Rutgers, where he did 2 years. And he also transferred now to Jack State, where he's gonna finish playing his college year because of these coaches. My son, Darrell Jackson Jr., is committing on Saturday, March 15th, to NASA Community College in Long Island. If you guys take these good, hardworking coaches from this community, from these young men, y'all making a big mistake. These coaches did a lot for our community. They took a lot of these young men as our color and took them further because other people didn't have faith. A lot of people didn't have faith in none of my sons. But I am here today to stand for my boys and this community, to let you guys know that these coaches are good men and they care for our children and they care for our young men a lot. Thank you for hearing me. I'm sorry I didn't know about a sign up, because as me standing here today, I would have signed up. because my kids are in a good place today. And you will see in the future them on the NFL team. Thank you and have a good day.
I want to thank everyone for their very heartfelt comments, and also for everyone that took the time to send us an email regarding this issue. Rest assured the discussion will continue among the board, and all your comments and concerns will be considered. Thank you so much. That was a lot of love right there. And now, oh, I'm sorry, Phil.
Thank you, Madam President. So, we've heard a lot of information in here tonight. We've heard from a lot of people, and I guess my question is this. What do we need to do as a board, as a district, to revisit that decision that was made? And I say that to say this. Everyone sits on this group here, in a group of 9 board members and central office members, and we always say we care about the kids. We always say the kids are the most important thing to us. And as I listen to some of the student athletes that came to that microphone tonight, and some of the student athletes that have reached out to me personally, I'm talking about over 100 kids, athletes, former athletes, and they are hurting from this decision. So I guess the question is, what do we need to do to revisit this decision, number one? Number two, the fact of the matter is there were mistakes made. There were mistakes made by different people, different entities, and I think that throwing the baby out with the water is not a good decision here. And I really would like us as a board, as a district, to reconsider the decision that was made. And I think we need to do it in a timely fashion, because something was said earlier. Understanding the amount of time that these coaches, these gentlemen, our program has not been able to work with our student athletes, it's again hurting our student athletes. And I think that, I would like to have an idea when we can have this discussion. And I would hope, as it was stated, that the decision was made collaboratively, which I don't agree with. I think it was made without enough information. We didn't have everything available to us to make the right decision. And I would personally like to have our deputy superintendent be a part of that conversation, because she worked on this case for 5 months. And I would love to know what was the thought process and what direction this was going in. We can do that in executive session if we need to do that, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and I think it needs to be done, because what we're doing now is hurting our scholars, we're hurting our children, we're hurting our community. Our community is divided right now. Our community is hurting right now. And I would love for us to revisit this and have a conversation on this. So I'm looking forward to hopefully the superintendent, acting superintendent, having that conversation with us along with the board members, so that we can take care of the business and do what we need to do. Thank you.
Ms. Boucher.
Can I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss?
Second.
The stated reason would be employment history of particular employees.
Mr. McCoy, I was going to make a motion to go in also for personnel matters and legal counsel.
Matters of employment history of particular individuals and advice from legal counsel.
I would like I know we've been excluding individuals from coming back here, but I think our deputy superintendent needs to be a part of that meeting.
Ms. Boucher.
I would also request Mr. Hodges to be in that meeting.
Roll call, please.
Roll call for executive session, Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms.
Before we go to the superintendent's portion, Mr. Shaw will read a statement.
Thank you, Madam President. Here's a statement about the coaches. The board intends to have the evaluations of the football coaches revisited and to have them appear at a meeting of the board's Personnel Committee to be held on March 20, 2025 at 6:45 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And item 4 is the superintendent's agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. If we can open up the document. Just wanted to share.
Thank you for reconsidering. Appreciate it.
Can that document go full screen? Okay, I just wanted to share with our board some of the data that has been asked for. So what you have in front of you is the New York State math test scores for 2023, 2024. Blue is students who are at level 4, which is above grade level. Green is on grade level. The yellow bar represents 1 grade level below, and the red is significantly below grade level. So these are the New York State math test scores for last school year, grades 3 through 8. When you go to the next slide, I did a comparison of 4 years of data. The green represents students who are in levels 3 and 4, and the red represents students who are in levels 1 and 2. And I'll give you a moment to look at the data, but as you can see, as students travel up in the grades, there is even more, I don't want to say failure, but not achieving the standard of the New York State math test scores. So for grade 3, as you can see, that's 4 years of data, starting in 2020, ending up in 2024 for each grade level. If you go to the next one, same thing with the New York State ELA scores. Last year's data, 2023, 2024. And then the last slide is 4 years of comparative data. Any questions on the New York State ELA and math results? Also, I wanted to share with the community that our FACE team, Family and Community Engagement, along with our NAACP, our local NAACP, will be hosting the Right to Read film April 10th at 6 p.m. at NFA main campus. Flyers will go out as well as on the district website, and this is going to be a kickoff looking for literacy volunteers, as well as help with Newburgh Basics and volunteers for that, for early childhood reading for our community. A question was asked earlier, and I want to share that the Reading League has already done the administrator training, And the next training is for all of the teachers and teaching assistants in the district, regardless of what they teach, special ed, reading, classroom. We're making sure that every single teacher in our district will have training on how to teach evidence-aligned strategies to ensure that all children will be able to read. And I will then turn it over to 4.3, Budget Development, Ms. Roaring.
Good evening. We are here with a budget update again this evening. So if we can go to the presentation. Currently, you can go to slide 2. In this stage in the budget development process, we're receiving feedback from the board and the acting superintendent. We are sharing a budget update tonight that includes some proposed adjustments in staffing. We have prepared and submitted the tax cap calculation, which was due by March 1st, and we have received a proposed design and estimate for the NFA North Auditorium renovation, which may be a future topic of conversation. Next slide, please. So we know that the tax cap calculation has been one of the most challenging things to share out to our community in an understandable way. So we decided to take a different approach this year, and we have a short video that was prepared by Capital Region BOCES that really talks about how the tax cap calculation is done.
New York State's property tax levy cap. What is it and how does it affect our public schools? Or, to put it another way, where is a 2% tax cap not a 2% cap on tax increases? In New York State, that's where. Why? Because despite being touted by some politicians and the media as a 2% tax cap, the law does not prevent your school tax bill from increasing by more than 2% each year. So what does it do? It requires each public school district to calculate a tax levy limit each year using a complicated 8-step formula dictated by the state. How complicated, you ask? Well, you start with the prior year total tax levy. Wait, what's the tax levy? It's the total amount of property taxes a school district collects from property owners to balance its budget, after accounting for state aid and any other revenue sources. Back to the formula. Start with the prior year tax levy, multiply that by the tax base growth factor.
Then add pilot payments received in the prior year and subtract any tax levy that pays for court judgments, but not if they are tax certiaries. Also subtract capital costs paid with local tax dollars, not state aid, then multiply all of that by 2%, or the change in the consumer price index, whatever is lower, and subtract pilot payments expected in the coming year. Add the available carryover, which is anything left over from last year's tax levy limit, as long as it's less than 1.5% of the limit.
And you have this year's tax levy limit. You get it? Yeah, me neither. But did you catch the 2%? Let's go back. One of the 8 steps involves adjusting some costs for inflation using the change in consumer price index, or 2%, whichever is less. And then you continue with the formula. That's where the 2% comes in. Now you have the whole story. Last spring, only 5 of the state's nearly 700 school districts had a tax levy limit equal to 2%. 575 had a limit greater than 2%, and 92 had a limit less than 2%. One district's limit was a 31% increase, and another faced a 34% decrease. So the tax levy limit isn't 2%. It's whatever the state formula says it is, and it will be different for every school district. But whatever the limit is, taxes will be capped at that amount, right? Wrong, because the limit isn't a limit. It's just a threshold that determines what level of voter support a district needs to pass its budget proposal. If a district decides to propose a budget with a tax levy that is more than its tax levy limit, that district will need a supermajority, or at least 60% of voters, to approve its budget. If the proposed tax levy is at or below its limit, the budget passes with just a simple majority. By the way, there are certain costs called exclusions that the state says aren't subject to the tax levy limit, but districts still need to pay those. They're part of the levy, just not part of the limit. And don't forget, all of this applies to a district's total tax levy, not the tax rate, not your tax bill. Tax bills are also affected by other things that have nothing to do with the school district, like state equalization rates and local property assessments. Even if a district were increasing its levy by exactly 2%, what you'd see on your school tax bill could be entirely different. So, in review, it is not a 2% tax cap. In fact, it's not really a cap at all. It's a voter threshold. And the law was never designed to cap your tax bill. It applies to the levy only. What does this mean for your school budget? At the end of the day, the tax levy limit is just a number. School leaders still have to do what they've always done: weigh the cost of providing a quality school program with the community's ability to pay for it. To find out more, visit your school district website, attend public meetings, and learn more at educationspeaks.org.
So if we could go to slide 3 in the presentation. One of the things that was reviewed in that is the tax cap calculation and the factors that go into it. So we've completed the tax cap levy limit calculation, and for next year, that comes out to be $117.3 million. That's an increase of $3.7 million over the levy that was put out to the voters in 24-25. There's key factors in that calculation that are outside the district's control, which were mentioned in that video, and that includes the tax-based growth factor, which looks at the growth in the local communities, and then the allowable levy limit growth factor, which is either 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less, and then we look at the pilot payments. Our pilots are projected to be a little bit less in 25-26 than they were in 24-25. So there's also something called the available carryover, which is something that's determined by the State Comptroller's Office, and they determine if you have it and if you do, what that amount is. We do not have any. And the last piece is the exclusions, and one of them was talked about. The capital exclusion is one of the biggest factors in our tax levy calculation. And what that is the difference between our debt service expense for 25-26 and what we're going to receive in state building aid. And we have to use the governor's budget number in that calculation. So for us next year, that's about a $4 million difference. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is actually a tax cap calculation as it appears submitted to the State Comptroller's Office portal. And you'll see at the very top, our levy for this year was the $113.6 million. And then come down a couple lines and you'll see that allow the tax-based growth factor, which is at 1.0079. The pilot payments for 24-25 and projected for 25-26 are also part of that calculation. So our tax levy limit before adjustments is $113.2 million, which is slightly less than what our levy was for 24-25. Then we complete the capital tax levy exclusion, and next year our debt service expense is projected to be a little more than $4 million more than we are expected to receive in state building aid. So that's that allowable levy exclusion. That takes us to an allowable levy limit of $117.3 million, which is $3.7 million more, or 3.28%. Next slide, please. So there have been some proposed budget changes at this time. The acting superintendent has provided us some feedback on some of the requests that we've received. Next slide, please. Meetings have been held with the building principals. We talked a little bit about this in our last meeting. Those meetings have concluded with the building principals. Their staffing in their buildings was reviewed, any requested adjustments, and then their additional funding requests. And the adjustments that presented in the next few slides are based on decisions made by the acting superintendent. So there were several additional funding requests that have been approved. Some of these were reviewed as we did the divisional budget presentations. So one of them was an additional $10,000 in HR for some sub and OT costs. There was a lot of feedback around the proposed backpack scanners. This is currently recommended but subject to review by our Director of Security. We also had athletic scoreboards that were requested at our middle level buildings where we do hold competitions. In our last presentation, you heard about a PD membership for our fine and performing arts staff, as well as the concerns that we have regarding the tariffs and the impact on our ability to procure technology next year. So there's an allowance in here for that. There's a section of locker rooms that we're planning to paint and repair over at NFA. There's funds in here planned for that at this time. And then we had also noted that there were some playgrounds that have been identified by our insurance carrier as needing to be replaced. And at this time, those funds are also part of the proposal. Next slide, please. So there are some proposed staffing additions outlined here. They include some teachers, some support positions in operational departments, as well as some additional staffing for special education. We had a very detailed presentation from them in our last meeting about what they were doing with their program and the staffing needs that were going to come from that. Those are reflected here as well. Next slide, please. This slide includes some proposed staffing reductions at this time. So there are some faculty positions in here, clerical position in here, and there's also some anticipated reductions in administrative positions. Those will be notified after March 17th, so I anticipate that the board will have an update no later than the next board meeting. There are also some required budget additions. So when we talked to exceptional learners in the last meeting, we noted that there were a large number of incoming school-age children that were going to be in need of placement. So at this time, after doing a detailed review of those student needs and the possible placements, we are anticipating 34 students net change in our out-of-district placement, and we are using a rough number of $100,000 per student to project an increase in tuition due to new placements of $3.4 million next year. So at this time, our updated proposed budget would be $375.1 million, which is about $16 million increase year over year. That is equal to 4.5%. It's important to note that this does reflect the changes that have been shared tonight, but if there's any additional changes, those are not captured here. Next slide, please. Our revenue projection is also at $375 million. Again, a $16 million increase. This does include the flat tax levy. It includes increase in utility taxes as well as increased projected excess cost aid, and we are using appropriated fund balance. It's really important that we're noting those revenue variables on the right-hand side of the slide because there are changes happening at the federal level swiftly. Stay there, please. So that could affect several sources of funding for us. And one of the biggest areas is our school breakfast and lunch program. So if funding is pulled for that, that will take 79% of the current revenue that we have been receiving to support that program. That will be very challenging for the district to absorb. There is no word on whether or not the state would be able to supplant any of that, but that's something we're watching very closely because that continues to be a very hot topic of conversation. We're also looking very closely at some of the grants. We receive several $1 million in title and IDEA grants, and the IDEA grants support mandated services for our exceptional learners. So if those funds were to go away, we would have to figure out how to address that. Next slide, please. Could you go a little bit further down? Thank you. So this is the updated revenue projection. You'll see at the bottom that it is at $375.1 million or $16 million increase. There is appropriated fund balance of just under $5.2 million. And on the right-hand side, we have a category table. So you can see that 2/3 of our revenue is coming from state aid. That's a huge factor for us. They have not adopted their budget yet, so we're using the best numbers we have based on the executive proposal and historical information. Next slide, please. Mr. Rothman's going to do this part.
So if you can go to the next slide, please. I'm going to speak about the contract for excellence. So state aid, as Ms. Roaring just indicated, is a large part of the aid that we receive. And contract for excellence has been an annual endeavor during the budget development since 2007, 2008. So you can see that from 2007, 2008 through 22, 23, the number remained flat. Right, so this is a set aside. It's not extra money. It is part of the foundation aid, and it is a set aside. So whatever pot of money that we get, right, we have to set aside a very specific amount. And in this case, for this year, that amount goes from 17 million, so the current year that we're in, just over 17 million to over 21 million for next year. All right, so that's an increase of 24%. Next slide, please. As a reminder, for this year, the set aside and what it was used for, that $17.7 million, there are certain categories that Contract for Excellence has to be used for. And those categories there outline the categories that the money has to be set aside in those 5 areas. Next slide, please. Again, as a reminder, for this school year, right, the Contract for Excellence was used to support 118 positions across the district, which includes the categories that are there. Next slide. So the set aside for the upcoming school year is projected to be $21,955,979, right? 75% of those funds must go to the top 50% of the neediest schools. We don't get the numbers until after the state education department passes their budget, right? So when their budget is adopted, then we get the specifics about how that money needs to be allocated for each school, which makes planning difficult, right? So rolling over spending from this year, right? We outlined the fact that 118 positions are supported through the current spending. If we rolled over that spending based on the new contracts and people receiving raises, that amount would be $19.8 million, right? So there's a gap there compared to what we actually have to spend for next year. Next slide, please. So again, this is a set aside within the foundation aid for the 25-26 school year. And currently, the plan would be the addition of the outlined positions there, right? So coordinators of restorative justice, 5 of them at the schools that are named there, AIS teachers, social workers, AIS math teacher, a psychologist, an E&L teacher split between 2 schools, bilingual science teacher, and a bilingual social studies teacher. So this is based on needs that were expressed or on data, right, that supports the addition of these positions. Next slide, please. So restricted funds within the foundation aid, right, the initiatives that would be continued from this year, plus those positions that were outlined there, right, the proposal, these are the things that would be continued or enhanced through the foundation aid for the upcoming school year. Next slide, please. All right, so another set aside within foundation aid, right? So we have the contract for excellence. We also have the community schools mandated set aside. Next slide. So for this, the amount has remained flat, right? So for next school year, again, community schools, the set aside would be just over $800,000. And in fiscal year 26, it would fund, continue to support the positions that are outlined there. Okay. All right, next slide. All right.
So as we bring our budget development process to conclusion shortly, we will have a line item budget submitted to the acting superintendent later this week. The acting superintendent's proposed budget is to be presented to the board on March 25th in alignment with the board's adopted budget development calendar. The Board of Education may adopt on April 8th. We may have some additional conversation on the NFA North Auditorium proposal. We are looking at the fact that any budget adjustments that are made past this date may require identification of additional revenue if they are additions to the budget. That's questions, please.
Ms. Boucher.
So on the proposed staffing reductions, 5 out of the 9 positions are from Heritage. Can we just please explain the logic behind this and how we're ensuring that this isn't affecting class sizes?
When we met with each of the principals, they were able to articulate their needs, whether they had staff that are over and they would need to then move it into other categories. So this was based on their data, the number of students in the classes, and they're still within contractual limits. But this was the recommendations of the principals based on what senior staff saw and investigated.
Mr. DeRay.
Thank you. What has been the involvement of the budget person or firm that we approved last week? Have they been involved yet?
The budget development that we approved last week, I don't believe they've been involved as of yet.
And this is, we're going to adopt the budget on April 8th, which is 27 days away. So my question is, what involvement are they going to have for the next 27 days?
We just approved them at the last special meeting. I don't have a start date for them. That's up to the board and moving forward what the board decides.
Dr. Vaughn, I apologize. I did not hear what you said. Could you speak into the mic?
That would be up to the board when they start. That was a discussion by the board.
Thank you. Ms. Bello, when are they starting?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
Well, I guess my question is, we allotted $25,000 last week, did we not? To
Ms.
have a
Boucher?
budget. Somebody help us with the budget. When is that process going to start?
To my knowledge, they were supposed to start as soon as possible. So I'm confused as to why they haven't been in touch with the district.
Mr. Shaw said 15th of March. That's what was discussed.
No later than the 15th of March.
Okay, so, all right. I'll withdraw. That's 24 days of work.
That's not as soon as possible.
Okay. Mr. Bergarelli?
Can we go ahead and get an update when this firm does get in contact with the district and starts working, so we know, real-time email that they're here and they're, running with it, please?
Yes. Next item I'd like to present is item 4.4 for your consideration.
Somebody has their hand up.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. So, Kimberly, I'm sorry, I had my hand up, but I wasn't recognized. So when we say central office position, we're talking about a reduction of 12, and then we say an addition of 7. Without talking about those positions or people, how does that work? So the 7 new positions will be 7 different positions from the 12 that are going to be let go?
There will be some reconfigurations, so it would be a net loss of possibly 5 positions, equaling about $1 million.
Okay, thank you.
Item 4.4 for your consideration.
So that would be item 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6 on consent. Does anyone want to separate any out? Ms. Politi?
Yes, all of them.
Item 4.4, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? And discussion?
I thought we were amending this. I thought we were going to amend this.
Point of order, ma'am. So now that it's on the floor, somebody can amend it.
I'd like to make a motion to amend 4.4.
Second.
The amendment would state effective March 12, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2025. It's this part up here.
So point of order, the first paragraph in the resolution would read, be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the acting superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby creates the 12-month pedagogical
No.
position.
12-month comes out.
Creates the pedagogical position of associate superintendent of schools effective March 12, 25 and ending June 30th, 2025.
Correct.
And the rest would stay.
Yes.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And roll call.
On the amendment, Ms. Victoria Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Duray,
Yes.
Mr. Howard, Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello,
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello.
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher.
Yes.
Item 4.5.
Point of order,
Oh,
ma'am.
I'm sorry,
So you just need a roll call on 4-4 as
as
amended.
amended. Okay. Roll call on 4.4 as amended.
Mr. Bergarelli,
No.
Mr. Duray,
No.
Mr. Howard. No. Ms. Politi,
No.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello,
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello,
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher,
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher.
Yes.
That item passes as amended.
Resolution 4.5, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. DeRay? Yes. Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
No.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
No.
Item 4.6, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. DeRay?
This is for the fire truck being parked at Meadow Hill.
Yes.
Is there any, it's a very brief description of what's going to happen, and I think it's a great idea by the fire department. Is there any sort of indemnity built in? The truck gets damaged on our property, who's responsible? Which would make it a little bit more complex, but you're talking about $1 million piece of equipment being parked on our property.
Mr. Shaw, could you speak to that?
Could you repeat the concern?
The concern is if it's a very expensive piece of equipment that they're willing to put on our property. But in the event the equipment gets damaged, vandalism, weather, anything like that, are they indemnifying us, actually?
There should be indemnification, naming us as an additional insured.
I don't, based on what I'm reading, I don't see that, but it's a question.
They
Matthew?
provided the district with a certificate of insurance naming us as the additional insured.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so roll call.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Okay. Item 5 on the agenda, the clerk of the board, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 5.1 and through 5.3 on consent.
Would anyone like to separate any out? Okay, a motion, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Potential Board of Education candidates, if you're interested in running for the board, packets of information are available in the clerk's office. The people that are up for a re-election this year, currently the seats are being held by Mr. DeRay, Mr. Stewart, and Ms. Victoria Boucher. In order to get on the ballot, you need 100 signatures from qualified voters in the district. Those signature petitions would need to be turned into the clerk's office by April 30th at 5 p.m. That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you. Item 6, the board president. I have item 6.1 through item 6.10 on consent. Does anyone want to separate any out?
Each of them, please.
Mr. DeRay, didn't hear that.
Each of them.
All of them. Okay. Item 6.1, can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
And discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Item 6.2, can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Item 6.3, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Boucher?
Mr. Shaw, can you speak to the legal rights of sex offenders being able to come onto school to vote from 7 to 9?
That is a legal right that they have, and the question is where they will be voting, what polling place they'd be voting at.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Thank you, Madam President. Let me start by saying I don't want sex offenders in our schools. It seems silly to even have to say it as a parent, as a father, as a former police officer who honestly didn't have a good reputation when it came to dealing with people who victimized other people and took away their rights. This policy has been brought up a bunch of times before in the last few years, once again making it appear that Newburgh has a problem that's not being addressed. We have discussed it out here. We've discussed it in the back room. We don't have a problem. The district always handles the situation appropriately. New York State has already given districts a policy on how to deal with this when it arises. In 2023, 153 exonerations of wrongful convictions were overturned, 3,478 since 1989. As technology gets better, that rate will only rise. Nearly 84% of the people that were exonerated were people of color. New York State has no Romeo and Juliet laws on the books. The current policy is last chance for individuals who have been caught up in a bad prosecution. I love this country and truly believe we do an outstanding job with our criminal justice system, who we prosecute and when, but we do make mistakes. I believe we have a perfect system with imperfect people applying it because of, in the end, we're just human and we have our own motivations that are not consistent with the law. I have personally seen bad arrests, because I was a police officer. I've seen bad arrests from overzealous cops thinking about overtime, overzealous DAs who wanted to make their mark, small towns with personal issues, knowing the victims, knowing the complainants. We have a chance here to make it right for a parent by allowing our superintendent, with information from the parole officer, to make that determination. And the superintendent's personal policy that she doesn't have to share with anybody else can be, I'm not letting anybody in our schools, but at least we leave the door open to those people who were forgotten about and misjudged. Thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
No.
Mr. Duray?
No.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Ms. Politi?
No.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
That item passes.
All right, Resolution 6.4, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
No.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
6.5, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second, okay. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Item 6.6, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bergarelli?
No.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Item 6.7, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Item 6.8, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
No.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Item 6.9, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Item 6.10, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Item 6.11 is a discussion item. First reading of 2342, agenda preparation and dissemination. Is there any discussion? Okay. Who?
It says, am I allowed to speak? Or? It said board president, superintendent, schools, clerk of the board. So we're eliminating the vice president of the board still for preparation? I thought we've been down this road before.
Ms. Boucher?
So we have been down this road before. In our discussions, we found that it was customary to be invited by the superintendent and the board president to attend the agenda setting meeting.
Have you been invited?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam President, the board's going to need to entertain a motion to add an item to the agenda. The item that would be added would read as follows. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes its president to sign an agreement with architects Clark Patterson Lee in a settlement of its litigation pending against the Newburgh and Large City School District in Orange County Supreme Court, index number EF0085502024. As presented to the board at this meeting, a copy of said agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting. You should entertain a motion to add that item, ma'am.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
The chair will now entertain a motion on that added item.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes. Okay. Item 7 on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Ms. Lamer.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda, we have items 7.1 through 7.16 for your consideration on consent.
Would anyone like to separate any out? Mr. Duray?
7.16, please.
7.16, you said?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Bergarelli?
7.11, please.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else? That's it, okay. Can I have a motion on 7.1 through 7.16 minus 7.16 and 7.11?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher? Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Item 7.11, can I have a motion? A second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Bergarelli?
Thank you. Specific to the strength and conditioning coach, what teams does that coach work with, is supposed to work with?
Who are you asking? Can anyone?
I'm asking whoever might know the answer.
The information in the teacher's contract divvies it up by semester. So it would be the sports that are played during the summer, first semester, second semester.
I'm sorry.
That's what the contract,
What sports are played in the summer?
I have no idea. Conditioning would be happening possibly in the summer.
But would that be open to all sports or
Yes.
just, because we don't have summer sports, so?
The strength coach, that weight room is supposed to be open to anybody
Every team,
playing a sport. No matter what sport it is, during that semester or during that summer, getting prepared for the fall semester, that strength coach and that room is for all athletes.
And what are the conditions tied to that? Any student can go and say, I need training, or they have to go through their coach, or how's it done? How's it work?
That I can't answer, I don't know that.
Can we
I
get
can
an
find
answer
out
to
for
that
you.
and get an email? Or
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Boucher?
Are there any current spring sports that do not have a coach?
There's a couple that we've just recently reposted. So yes, the answer to that is yes. I would have to get back, I can get back to you about the specific sport, but we've had to repost a few of them.
So what is going to
Probably
happen to those children?
4. They can't do anything until there's an adult appointed.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Resolution 7.16, can I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Duray?
My discussion, as always, is to congratulate anybody who achieves tenure in this profession. So I'm not sure if Christine Burns is with us, but congratulations on achieving this. It's really very, very special in this profession. So thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Duray. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Item 8 on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent of Finance, Ms. Roaring.
Thank you. The Finance Division presents items 8.1 to 8.10 tonight for consent.
Can I have a motion? Oh, does anyone want to separate any out? Mr. Bergarelli?
8.5?
Okay. Okay. So 8.1, can I have a motion on 8.1 through 8.10 minus 8.5?
So moved.
And a
Second.
second. Roll call.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Thomasina Bello? Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Item 8.5, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Discussion, please? Mr. Bergarelli?
Thank you, Madam President. on the list of these surplus and obsolete equipment, there's iPads, there's computers and things like that. Has there ever been a discussion, a thought of churches, boys and girls clubs, the armory, things like that, we can talk about maybe some of those materials going to?
Certainly. So we actually do take, the reason that these are surplus, I'll take the Chromebooks, for example, because the other items are broken beyond repair. Our Promethean boards, for example, are 10 years old. Well, maybe, but to a point. And the Chromebook specifically, and this is planned obsolescence because they no longer accept the security updates. So actually plugging them in is a bad idea. It becomes a cyber threat. So you actually can't use them. And that's kind of the way they're designed. They actually expire after so many years. That's pretty smart, right? So that's how that works. So you get a couple of years after that, and then you can't keep using them because it creates a security hole. It's the same reason why we have to replace some of our desktops because, again, the manufacturers make them. We do actually use, and I hear your question, but there's actually a third party that these go to, and they do DoD, Department of Defense level cleaning to make sure that our data is secure, private, and cleansed. And then they sometimes recycle them for parts. And if they're able to get some money from them, we get a piece of that back. So this isn't a complete, even though the equipment is no longer of use to us, we actually do sometimes, if there's any value, we get some residuals back.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Item 9, Assistant Superintendent of Technology, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you. Department of Technology and Data presents for the board's consideration items 9.1 through 9.4.
Would anyone like to separate any out? Okay. Roll call.
Point of order, ma'am. You need a motion and a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. And a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Okay, item 10, Assistant Superintendent Curriculum and Instruction, Elementary, Dr. O'Grady.
Thank you. The Curriculum and Instruction Department, Elementary, presents item 10.1 for your consent.
Would anyone like to separate any out?
I don't think there are any.
Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
That concludes my item. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 12, Assistant Superintendent of Exceptional Learners, Mr. Bear.
Point of order, ma'am?
Oh, you missed number 11.
Section 11.
Item 11, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Secondary, Dr. Soto. Thank you.
Thank you. The Curriculum and Instruction Division, secondary level, presents agenda items 11.1, 11.2, and 11.3 for the board's consideration on consent.
Would anyone like to separate any out? No. Roll call, please.
No
No.
discussion.
Can I have a motion?
Motion, so moved.
And second, okay. Roll call.
Who's the second?
Second?
Thomasina?
No,
Second.
I motioned. She seconded.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello? Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items for this evening.
Item 12, Assistant Superintendent of Exceptional Learners, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Madam President. The Exceptional Learner Division has items 12.1 and 12.2 for the board's consideration on consent.
Would anyone like to separate any out? No. Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.